Hello and good morning from Rockland. I'm Thomas Stockting. Coming up on today's programme, we take a look at the COVID-19 update in the region. City of Clarence-Rockland set tax rate for 2022. United Counties Prescott-Russell strike a deal over the recreational pathway. Entrance to the hockey arena set to be closed permanently. Bruce de la Cruz explores Treaties Week. The community hub YMCA opens its doors. And a low-key Remembrance Day in Clarence-Rockland. After a week of deliberations amongst the council, the municipal tax rate in Clarence-Rockland has been set at 2.95%. The original figure was 4.09%, and the councillors struggled to find a common ground. Having already agreed to fund all the capital projects that were proposed by the city, there was only one place left to cut: the reserves. With some members of council seeking a figure as low as 2.09 and others content to keep the reserves high with a figure of about 3.5, finding a common ground wasn't as easy as they thought it would be as they debated for over an hour. Made all the more complicated by the absence of Councilor Simard, meaning there was no tie-breaking vote. After many conversations and failed propositions, councillors settled on cutting $50,000 contributions towards the reserve funds for equipment, fleets, as well as economic development, as well as reducing the building reserves fund by 50%. Thanks to these cuts, the council was able to keep the tax rate below 3%, and although no councillor was overly pleased with the outcome, as they say, a deal well negotiated leaves all parties unhappy. For more information on some of the key elements of the budget, you can visit our YouTube channel where we did daily roundup shows throughout the week. An agreement in principle has been reached between the Prescott-Russell Recreational Trail Corporation and Via Rail, with the corporation set to acquire the trail's infrastructure for a yet undisclosed fee, and negotiations continue between the two parties. Announced by the United Counties earlier this week, Via Rail's Chief Operating Officer said they are proud to support this popular local recreational spot, turning a piece of railway heritage into what they called a thriving green space with invaluable environmental and social benefits. Use of the railway in our region ended in 1986 and was turned into a recreational pathway 20 years later, spanning 72 kilometres across Prescott-Russell. To hear more about the importance of the pathway to our region and to the residents, then you can watch our show In Your Ward, where I met up with Councillor Diane Chouanière from Bourget. Now, from November 1st to November 7th, the province of Ontario observed Treaties Recognition Week, an annual event designed to educate Ontarians and honour the importance that the treaties have on our history as a nation, which will hopefully lend to better understanding between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities across the country. TVC 22 reporter Bruce de la Cruz was able to speak to Archie Martin, a member of the Métis and Mi'kmaq Nation, who explained what this week means to him and why it's so important as a first step towards true reconciliation.
We're here today to explain the treaties, from Eastern Canada right through Canada, to explain the treaties and to explain why treaties were made. Also to explain the impact of treaties is having here on our country. Also the impact is having on the First Nation, and also for the Métis people. We're all impacted with these treaties because there's many treaties which were maybe acknowledged but maybe not respected. Okay, that's why we're trying to bring them back alive.
And right away, just to set the tone, can you define what a treaty is?
A treaty is an agreement. It's the same thing, and I would say if you're going to buy a house, you have a contract. And a treaty is, if you look at it as a contract, signed by two groups, or could be three groups. It could be, treaty could be rights, having different types of rights. But a lot of times the rights, the government tries to change the rights to become a privilege. A right cannot be removed. a privilege, it can be modified and taken away from you. But when, a privilege can be taken away from you. But a right, you cannot take it away. It's your right, okay? And those treaties are rights.
And in the context of the First Nations people, what are treaties to them, and what treaties have been made with the Government of Canada in the past?
Well, the treaties that were made, they were made from the beginning of the arrival of the Europeans, because the treaties, they come from Europe. First Nation, they didn't really understand what the treaty was at that time until we became more familiar what we were losing, what was happening. So for sure, these treaties have a great impact on the First Nation today on, I would say, sharing the wealth, sharing also conditions on reserves, and also what we have signed with the government for our people and for our generations to come.
And would you mind going into a little more detail how these treaties that have existed for at least a century, many of them, how they're still affecting First Nations and Canadians today?
Well, these treaties, especially, I'll just take one for example, the 1752 treaty, which was a peace and a friendship treaty, was impacted to go to our heirs and our heirs and our heirs to come. This is something that cannot be taken away from the Mi'kmaq people, and a lot of these treaties are a working document so that it's fair to everybody. It's fair for the government, it's fair for the Europeans, and it's going to be fair also for the First Nation.
Perfect. And this week from November 1st to November 7th is Treaty Week.
Mm-hmm.
And Treaty Week has been implemented by the Government of Canada since 2016. And so can you tell us the importance of why it's so important that the Government of Canada has started finally recognizing the importance of these treaties?
Well, I think for the government to realize and the government to acknowledge these treaties, I think it's part of the reconciliation. If you do not, if you've signed something and you don't respect it, how can you reconciliate with the First Nation or with any nation? Is that you have signed this, you must respect it, and if you want to reopen it and renegotiate it, you can. But first of all, if you want reconciliation, it's all in the same process of reconciliation. This Treaty Week has a big implication on how we're going to reconciliate with all different people.
And speaking of reconciliation, what are some other ways that people can learn about First Nations?
Well, there's a lot of the internet. The internet gives us a lot of information on different topics, especially on treaties. Also, it gives you maybe, like we're having here today, giving them knowledge and be able for them to understand the implication of treaties, the implication also on working as a people and all living together. Because everything changes with the immigration, different people coming in, and so on and so forth. For sure, Quebec would be fighting for their language. Natives would be fighting for their treaties. We all have something that we want, okay, to accomplish, especially for our future, okay, for our children, okay. It might not be for us, straight down the line, but at least we're doing something for our generations to come, which is going to benefit not just First Nation, it's going to benefit all the people of Canada, okay.
Perfect. And final question, just going off of that actually, Archie, what do you want to see happen? Because you've been giving these speeches or these talks for the past 17 years, I believe.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, so what's the perfect ideal future for First Nations and Canadians together?
Well, I'm not a believer in reserves. We should all have communities, and we should all be paying our fair share. There are some things that must be given to First Nation, I believe, and also for the Métis people. But if you just look at the Métis people, the federal government, they're great to separate by giving everything to the Métis of the West and nothing to the Métis of the East. Those things really hurt, reconciliation. It really hurts also trying to erase us. By the way they can erase your culture is to erase your language, and after they erase your language is trying to make you what you're not. In other words, a lot of time I heard, well, we're going to take the Indian out of the boy, okay? And something that really hurt me when I was in the Maritimes, when I was told, speak white. That's really, I was like, didn't know what to answer to that. It really affected me very, very, very much so.
Well, Archie, thank you for giving us such an insightful answer and such a great insight to what Treaty Week is all about.
Okay, good.
We'd like to thank, first of all, the Clarence-Rockland Public Library for putting on the event, as well as thanking Mr. Martin for his time, as well as opening up and sharing a bit of his story with us. If you're interested in finding out more about the event that took place at the Public Library, you can head to our YouTube channel, where we've got a full recording of the seminar, of the presentation that was given by Mr. Martin. So head on over there and maybe you'll learn something new today. As the popular song suggests, it would seem that everybody does love to go to the YMCA. Since its reopening, the Clarence-Rockland YMCA has seen a return to form as members have been able to come back to the community hub. This past week, TVC 22 reporter Bruce de la Cruz, who is everywhere it would seem, spoke with Tracy Ware, General Manager of the Y, to ask how the reopening has been going and what plans they have for an even brighter looking future.
Hi Tracy, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Bruce.
Good, and can you tell us where we are today?
We are at the YMCA in Clarence-Rockland.
Perfect, and how long has the YMCA been open again to the public?
So we opened back up to the public on November 1st.
And how's it been since then?
It's been fantastic. So we're really thrilled to be back open, and so are the members. It's been a lot of fun to have people back in the building, lots of smiles, lots of active people, and lots of really happy people to be back in the building and moving again.
Perfect. And can you just reiterate the importance of why Clarence-Rockland needs this facility open?
So this facility is particularly special because it's not only an exercise facility, but it's a community hub. So a lot of the folks that come out to the facility to exercise come out also for their social, their daily social. So we are finding that tons of people are just coming back to actually see their friends again. So they're coming out to exercise, they're doing fitness classes, they're coming to use the conditioning room, but they're also meeting to sit and have a little social visit, to have a coffee at the cafe, to sit and chat with people that they haven't seen for a good 19-20 months. This place is a real meeting place for the people of Clarence-Rockland, and they're really happy to be back.
And you talked about some of the members using equipment and such. What are some of the programs that are open right now?
So we started the session, which is going to run from November 1st to December 17th, so technically our fall session, with 11 fitness classes, dryland fitness classes on the schedule. So it's a little bit of a soft opening. We also have our conditioning floor available, and the gym is available as well in the evening for folks to come in and use for stretching and that kind of thing. We are going to be adding some classes as well as the time permits, and then we also have the pool set and scheduled. We're really excited to hear. We got news from our folks who have been doing repairs on the pool that we are going to be in line for our planned opening before the end of November for the pool and for water programs. So we're really excited about that.
Perfect. And just going back to the conversation of limits, just to how many patrons can be inside the building, what's the cap for right now?
So that was really exciting. So when we set out to open for November 1st, we were still under provincial capacity limits, but slightly before we opened, I believe it was the end of October, around the 25th of October, the province lifted our capacities, which was fantastic. So we are currently no capacities for numbers that can be in the building, but we are being respectful of COVID safety. So we are watching watching our numbers, and we are asking people to be respectful of their fellow exercise people and staying out of people's way. So we're asking people to be respectful of everyone's personal space and stay out. And we're also keeping our COVID cleaning care program up to the standards of COVID. We're doing COVID screening when people come in the door, and we are also following the provincial vaccine mandate policy. So folks who come into the building have to be vaccinated to access the facility.
Perfect. And are people who are not members allowed to just come and sign up for classes, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a guest policy, so people can pay for a day visit and access the facility by our guest policy.
Excellent. And finally, Tracy, just with COVID seeming to die down nowadays, what kind of other programs are you hoping to bring in just to attract more people and to bring more people in, and hopefully, just to see us through these final days of the COVID-19 pandemic?
We're really excited to be doing things like collaborating with the library that shares the building with us, collaborating with La Scala school next door, and offer some programs and workshops that share with them the kinds of things that they see that are necessary for the community. We're looking forward to doing some programming that will be more workshop and lecture based, some special event programming and whatnot, and all of those things are things that people can look for in the new year.
Tracy Ware there from the YMCA. Last week, we reported that finally Industrial Road is once more open to traffic after more than a year. However, if you thought this was good news for the entrance to the arena, you'll have to think again, as it's set to be closed permanently. To compensate for this, the intersection of De l'Étang Road and Arena Road are set to be developed into a T-section junction, but council weren't too keen to increase the traffic in that area.
So just to remind everyone that Industrial Road is open to access the arena. Le chemin industriel est ouvert pour accéder à l'aréna. What kind of work, Mr. Lenhart, are you talking about doing at chemin de l'Étang? What would you have in mind? You're going to make it wider? What's your plan?
So the road is not planned to be wider. The road is planned so the radiuses need to be adjusted for in order to have the proper radius for like buses or bigger vehicles. And then a follow-up project to this one is going to be a light and turning signal on the 17, similar to what's at Caron and Industrial. So to be able to ensure that there's the proper safety measures in place for the traffic.
So everyone that's buses are gonna be directed to go to take De l'Étang to get into the arena parking lot.
That's right. So all access to the arena is going to be either through De l'Étang or through Industrial.
Okay, I'm just curious because I really don't think that the residents that live in those areas was actually forecasting or knew that buses and hockey traffic were going to be part of their daily, well, actually winter issues. Monsieur, what's that?
Just to add, sorry, Mr. Mayor, is De l'Étang Street is identified as a collector road, so it is conceived as being a main access exit from that subdivision.
C'est beau, merci. C'est quand que ça a été identifié, la raison pourquoi je dis ça, c'est que EQ Homes a changé de plan une couple de fois. They were wanting to build homes, now they're actually concentrating a little bit more on higher density or medium density. On certain areas, right? So that's why it's creating more traffic, even more than it was already planned when all of this was put together. Monsieur Bouchard, ensuite Monsieur Clément.
Oui, je ne sais pas si peut-être le trésorier peut juste clarifier un peu dans les chiffres, parce que je me pose la question, est-ce que c'était en haut, c'était 100 000, après ça 10 000 du fonds de réserve et puis 90 000 de la dette?
Ouais, c'est un typo, ça aurait dû être 100 000 $, puis c'est 100 000 qui est financé du fonds de réserve de route.
Fait qu'il n'y a rien sur la dette telle que.
Non.
Okay. Parfait, merci.
Monsieur Grimard.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. C'est certain qu'au niveau trafic, j'abonde dans ce que vous dites, Monsieur le maire, que les autobus, je ne sais pas si on va pouvoir travailler la signalisation pour de l'Étang, mais tout véhicule large devrait être obligé de passer par industriel. Donc, au moins, ne toucherait pas, je ne sais pas si on va pouvoir faire un affichage, qu'il n'y a pas de camion ou d'autobus. Je sais que ce n'est pas évident là, à mettre en application, mais je trouve ça vraiment difficile pour les résidents de voir cette chose-là arriver et d'avoir un trafic. Je sais que c'est un collecteur, mais C'est une rue ordinaire, là, on va être réaliste là-dessus. Là. Je vais à la station de transfert porter des produits et c'est pas aussi large qu'un collecteur régulier. Peut-être que l'amélioration va être faite. Là. Mais je pense qu'il faudrait vraiment gérer la circulation qui va rentrer de l'étang pour avoir des véhicules réguliers. Et tout ce qui est véhicule d'une certaine grosseur, on empêche l'entrée avec la signalisation pour qu'ils puissent prendre la rue industrielle. Sinon, ça va être vraiment plus difficile dans ce coin-là. Je ne sais pas si ça a été pensé alors.
Ouais. Mais je suis complètement d'accord parce que peut-être que de l'étang est fait pour être un collecteur, mais le petit chemin à côté pour rentrer dans le stationnement, là, celui-là, il n'est pas fait pour être un collecteur. Les gens, quand ils achètent leur maison, ils n'ont pas pensé qu'on allait passer le trafic de l'académie ou de l'aréna, pardon, dans ce stationnement. Alors, pareil comme M. Grimard, je demanderais à peut-être reviser ce plan-là, mettre des affiches sur la 17 pour diriger les autobus pour prendre industriel à la place. Il y a beaucoup plus de place sur industriel et il n'y a aucune maison. Alors, on comprend que c'est la place. Monsieur, je vais laisser M. Lenhart peut-être dire ses pensées là-dessus, et ensuite M. Cardarelli.
Ben, dans le fond, M. le maire, la seule chose que j'allais dire, que c'est des très bons commentaires. Là, dans le fond, ce qu'on va faire, c'est qu'on va faire les plans là, et on va évidemment là, les présenter là, et on va mettre en place là, la signalisation et tout ça. Là. Donc, en ce moment, les plans ne sont pas faits, donc je ne peux pas vraiment me prononcer sur exactement comment le trafic va circuler et tout. Mais c'est des super bons commentaires. Là, ils sont bien reçus, donc ils seront considérés là, lors du développement des plans.
Merci beaucoup, M. Cardarelli.
Merci, Mr. Mayor. I think it's just also getting people to get used to going back on industrial. It's literally been open for, what, a week? So I think we need to give it some time in order for people to, personally, I prefer using industrial to get to the arena. So again, I think it's just a matter of people getting used to the road being open again. So maybe that would help mitigate some of these issues that have been brought forward to you guys.
Merci, M. Cardarelli, M. Cyr, et ensuite M. Grimond.
I kind of agree with what Councilor Cardarelli just said and Monsieur Councilor Grimard. Is there a reason why we need two entrances to the academy? Because can we just have people come in and come out of industrial and then have people come out de l'étang? So like a one-way coming out of l'étang, the portion from the academy to the portion to the road. Like, I'm not sure why we need two entrances to the academy. If we send everybody, the lights are already at industrial. So let's focus everybody. And if we need a separate exit, then people can exit through l'étang.
So Mr. Mayor, just to, I guess, maybe clarify a bit in terms of the question about possibly having it as a one-way, and if I understand it was maybe in terms of avoiding having another set of lights on the 17. But there is a traffic study that was done for the development, and there's a traffic study that's done for that entire area. And just because of the development, there is going to be the need for a light. So regardless of if there's two entrances to the arena, that light project is in the DCs and is identified as a need to be able to manage the traffic coming out of that development. So it was already planned and it was already considered. There's additional assessments that can be done to make sure that there is that the best traffic flow is designed and is proposed, but at a high level, all that has already been considered in terms of the need for the light.
Maybe just a follow-up question, Mr. Mayor. Has the United Counties been approached for a possible contribution to all these improvements to that section of the road?
So Mr. Mayor, it's a bit of a harder question to answer. It's not a simple question in the sense that when the arena was built, there's an agreement with the counties that the entrance would be built and that there would be the appropriate turning lanes, and that there would be the appropriate traffic control measures in place, which never took place, never happened. So so the counties are looking forward to us closing the entrance to the arena, which should have been done a few years ago, and are looking forward to the entrance and the signalized lights. But this is not a county, it's not a need for the counties. It's really for the city and for the development associated around that road. So the counties are not going to be participating in that. And the costs associated with that, the city and the developers through the DCs are.
The lights are going to be paid for by the counties.
No, we are.
Yeah, well, okay, we could talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk that. We'll set up a meeting on that, because
no,
it's every time that we want something built, it's always like the counties don't. But when we want something fixed, then the counties say it's
exactly.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could suggest that is probably a discussion that should be had after the budget.
Correct. Yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you. Merci, Monsieur Cyr. Monsieur Grimard, allez-y.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Good point on the light. Excuse me. Merci, Monsieur Léonard, de prendre beaucoup de notes. Et je crois que on a une enseigne à l'entrée qu'on va fermer, hein, qui annonce l'aréna et l'académie. Alors, est-ce qu'on pourrait penser à mettre une identification lumineuse ou une affiche surindustrielle qui incitera encore plus les gens à voir que pour aller à l'aréna, c'est par là. Alors, je sais qu'elle est mise à l'ancienne entrée. Alors, est-ce que c'est quelque chose qu'on va vouloir, s'il vous plaît, garder en tête lorsqu'on va fermer, de faire sûr qu'on a un affichage approprié surindustriel pour diriger les gens naturellement surindustriel pour aller à l'aréna?
C'est un bon point, M. le maire. On va définitivement le considérer.
As you could hear, though, that clip was from the budget meeting that took place this week. As I mentioned earlier, there's an abundance of coverage on our social media channels if you want to go find out more information. Obviously, both languages are used because both languages are official, and it's just the person who's speaking at the time who decides on which language they'd like to communicate in. If it's not a language that you understand, you can contact the City of Clarence-Rockland and they should provide you with a translation. Now, let's take a look at the local COVID-19 situation in our region. Cases are starting to creep up a little bit as the colder weather sets in, with common colds and the flu both set to cause issues as they share symptoms with the COVID-19 virus. At the time of recording, there were currently nine active cases in the United Counties of Prescott-Russell, of which 3 were in the city of Clarence-Rockland. The rolling average is now at 8.8, which is up from 3.3 last week. Although these numbers aren't cause for concern, the upward trend is something to keep an eye on. The Eastern Ontario Health Unit recently published a press release reminding residents that although they share similar symptoms, the COVID-19 vaccine will not prevent you from contracting the annual influenza, commonly known as the seasonal flu, encouraging people to go out and get their flu shots too. November 11th, 2021 marks 103 years since the end of World War I. Remembrance Day marks a solemn time for us to remember and honour our veterans, and more importantly, those who gave their lives for the freedoms that we enjoy today. TVC 22 reporter Bruce de la Cruz was able to speak with Clarence-Rockland Legion Padre Robert Merritt about the difficulties of planning a Remembrance Day ceremony this year, explaining why we need a Legion here in Clarence-Rockland, and reminding us how important it is that we remember.
How was planning the ceremony this year? Were there any difficulties or challenges?
Oh, there are a lot of challenges, absolutely. The Legion obviously had to work with a lot of the Eastern Health Unit protocols, and we were never sure about spacing and attendance. This year is a little bit larger, we hope, than last year. COVID has taken a toll on all organizations, and a volunteer group like the Legion suffers greatly in terms of our commitment to one another, and our poppy campaign itself is limited this year because of spacing and the volunteers that were able to man the tables. But we did manage the poppy campaign at Walmart, and it was very successful this year, and we're thankful to the support of Walmart to allow the Legion to have its presence. But like all organizations and institutions in COVID, we're all on a learning curve.
And speaking of the Poppy campaign, how much money were we able to raise this year?
Yes, it's not official yet, but I heard this morning that we raised around $5,100 through the Poppy campaign, about another $3,500 through the merchandise sales. So merchandise includes our caps, our pins, our souvenirs of remembrance. So those things will be added up. We officially will do the count starting tomorrow. So it's been a successful campaign at that point. And this is a very important year for us because it is the 100th anniversary of the Poppy campaign, established in 1921, largely by two women that were concerned about the needs of those who were injured in the war and widows of the war. So the Poppy campaign raised money beginning in France to help support that. It was introduced in Canada in 1921. I believe we were the first Commonwealth nation to install the Poppy campaign, and the Poppy's been a strong symbol of remembrance for the Canadian Legion and indeed around the world.
Perfect. And coming back to here in Clarence-Rockland, all the money that we raised this year, how's it going to be used for
So
veterans?
the money raised through the Poppy Trust campaign goes directly into veteran services. It supports the Pearly Hospital in Ottawa for veteran hospital needs. It will support the veterans living on the street. There's a campaign to get them off the street. We recently just opened Veterans House, former Rockcliffe Air Base. Those kinds of programs are supported by the Poppy Trust. There's also bursaries given to children of grandparents who served, that educational bursaries. Any needs that the veterans may have in terms of health services, providing support for wheelchairs, those kinds of things. All those things are in an application form toward the Legion that we would distribute the money out.
And speaking of veterans, which conflicts do you have to be a part of to be considered for these services? And do you need to be a part of the Legion?
No, Legion is open to the public. I myself, as a civilian minister, I'm not a war veteran. I've served my time in the United Church of Canada, and I've become Padre for the Legion over the last 10 years. The Legion has obviously opened its membership to those who serve in Canadian Armed Forces. It's also open to RCMP members, former RCMP members, and to the general public in a wider way. Auxiliary memberships, and anyone can join the Legion if you have a heart for serving your community. It is certainly a place for you.
Perfect. And bringing it back to today, for those who might not be able to attend a Remembrance Day ceremony for whatever reason, whether it be work or just because of COVID, how can they show their respect?
So obviously, one of the things we're very proud of is last year we instituted the banners on Laurier Street to name the 14 that had fallen from the city, 5 from World War I and 9 from World War II. Those banners have been on the streets of Laurier for most of this month. It's an opportunity for anybody to come sometime today or throughout the week to take a look at the banners, maybe have a solemn reflection underneath one of those banners. Perhaps a family name is connected to you. We don't know who the relatives are in this community. It'd be wonderful to hear from people if they know that they have a relative that is listed on the war monument or on the banners. Those are ways that you can personally do some of your own research. If your last name should appear on the banner, check it out, find out maybe there's a history there. Maybe there's a lost relative you didn't know, especially in the First World War. So there are moments that you can, throughout watching this program, take a silent moment in reflection, come down to the cenotaph anytime after today and pay your tribute to the cenotaph, and again, take special attention to the names most listed on the cenotaph. The front part is World War I, on the side is, World War II, on the side is World War I, but those names are listed on their banners on the street. So that's a way to commemorate.
As a history student myself, I think I will find some time to go down to the museum soon. Robert, I just wanted to kind of touch on a long debate that's been going on for a long time, whether or not Remembrance Day should be should change from a federal holiday to a statutory holiday.
Wow.
I know there's some pros and cons on both sides, but I was wondering what the Legion stances was.
I can't speak on behalf of the Royal Canadian Legion Canada. I can only give you my personal opinion. and that is whether it's a holiday with work time given to you off or whether it's a day that you just find reflection. It's an important day on our calendar. It's an important day for this country. Our democracies depend upon our freedoms, and our freedoms were fought in a very dramatic way, in a sacrificial way for this day. So I hope that whether you had the day off or not, you would find time to at least silently reflect. Of course, it would be wonderful if we were, as a nation, to celebrate in a larger way. COVID has restricted a lot of that, and I just ask for personal reflections.
Perfect. And just speaking back to Remembrance Day, it's been almost 100 years since we've been celebrating it, since 1931. As each year passes, do you feel that people have started to forget the meaning?
Yes. Armistice Day actually is older than that. It's established from the end of the First World War. So Armistice Day was established at the end of 1918. I believe the monuments, most monuments across Canada would have been erected probably within a couple of years in 1918, 20s. So it's in our culture. We as most people who have grown, who were birthed in this country, know the stories. Those newcomers that have arrived in Canada hear the stories, how important our war efforts were for First and Second World War. We have had ebbs and flows of importance of Remembrance Day, and certainly when the Canadian military were involved in Afghanistan. Many people, not just on November 11th, many people wore red shirts on Red Fridays as a way of supporting our troops. We don't need to be a military action to remember our troops. Our troops do great work in peacetime, civilian support as well. So I think it's more important to understand our culture, where we come from, and how we express the freedoms that we receive and the rights and privileges we have in Canada through honoring those who've gone before us.
And just final question, Robert. Amidst the chaos of these times due to COVID-19, just why is it so important? Can you explain again why it's so important just to take a moment today just to remember our veterans who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms?
All lives are based on history. You can't get around that. We have a history before us of those who've gone before us, and we must remember those who've made those sacrifices so that we can take our part and move our society peacefully forward.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Padre Robert Merritt there from the local region with some incredibly wise words to end this week's show. As ever, if there's a story within the community that you think needs more light shined on it, then you can reach out to us. You can get in touch by either calling the station and getting with me on extension number 4, there you go, the number's on your screen now, or emailing me at nouvelle@tvc22.ca. And for now, it's good morning from me, and it's good morning from the team, and we'll see you next weekend. Goodbye.